So next question for you guys. Tim, let's go over to you. How do you think about like the components of an ideal business case, right? Like if you were splitting a business case into its sections, is it as simple as just the R that you talked about? Is it as simple as just explaining the return and an explanation of how you got there? Or like maybe let me ask the question differently. If you commissioned your FP&A team to go build a value analysis or a business case on something, what sections would you want to see in that business case?
Yeah, I think on one hand, it is pretty simple. Hey, how much is this going to cost us? And what's the R, whether it's in cost savings or potentially sort of revenue lift, things like that. Again, business cases in some of the sort of regulatory or risk management ones are a little bit harder to quantify, but cost savings or revenue maximization are pretty straightforward. Subject to two other caveats, though, right? I think sometimes, and I think Michael was talking about this earlier, sometimes those ROIs tend to be a long way off. And I'm skeptical if there's a huge ROI, but it's going to take 3 or 4 years to get there, right? That's a lot of risk. I'd rather take smaller ROIs that you get quick value. So, making sure you understand when you're going to achieve that value. And if it's going to take some time, what measures, whether they be financial or other measures, show that you're on track, as opposed to, hey, this is not going where we want it to go. So it can't just be, I'm going to get X for Y, but how long is it going to take me and how much risk is there in that along the way?
How often do you see like business cases come across your desk from sellers or champions? Jim, I'll pass this one over to you. And you just like, you don't really believe it. You think it's like sophomoric, it's not well put together. My guess is that CFOs like roll their eyes at the majority of business cases that hit their desk, particularly from sellers. Is that true? Or do you actually like dig into most of the business cases that are presented to you?
Well, those are two different questions. So you dig into it, and is that true? Yeah, so that is true. You see a lot that I'll call them are fluffy bullshit ones, right? And so, and in part, sometimes they're like making up numbers, of what they think our costs are and stuff. And so those are very clear for a CFO to determine that's bullshit, right? And call bullshit on it. And that happens a lot. And, it even happens like on our side, right? When I think, we're building business cases to sell our product. So we try to really make it like refined and get to specifics. And so that you can like, it really is a little bit black and white as opposed to this whole fuzzy area of, increased efficiencies or productivity. So yeah, and CFOs do dig into them, right? And so, but a really like, I won't use a crass word, a really not good one, let's say, is you can dismiss it pretty easily. You can figure it out and dismiss it, pretty easily.
And I think if maybe one thing that I would add to what Jim said right there is if I see something that feels, I don't know, fluffy or like not realistic, one thing that you'll hear me say is, so you're committing to this? I'm gonna whatever, increase your number, decrease your number, like
oh God,
like, okay, your number's now going up 20% or down or whatever the number is that we're talking about. So, and that's a good way to kind of tease it out too, because if you're like, whoa, what are we talking about?
Yeah, Michael, it's so funny that you say that, because the number of conversations I have internally where I get pitched of this is going to save me 20% time. I said, oh, well, are you going to take your headcount target down by 20%?
Right.
And people stop and say, no. And I said, well, if we don't do that and we're in the cost productivity box, if we don't do that and we buy this product, all we've done is increase the cost in our P&L. Because if you're not putting that in the plan, it's not only neutral, you've increased costs and I've got no ROI. So, an advice I'd give is in that business case, that champion needs to put their money where their mouth is, and either saying, I'm going to reduce tool spend somewhere else, I'm not hiring as many people, or I'm going to take quota up, whatever it is. But if not, it's a phantom ROI. It sounds good, but no one's committing to it.
And it's pretty easy to figure out if the champion has not really been involved in the business case and they've simply taken something that a seller has given them and are now coming across with it. It's like third grade going into, a high school math teacher or something like that. It's like, come on, right? Are you kidding me? And you ask a couple questions and they're out of their league. And then, you're all at ground zero. So again, advice to sellers is keep it simple, like make sure your champion understands it, make sure it's realistic. You can have a plus and minus on it, right? So if you put a range on it, it's usually a little bit, that CFOs like that, right? Because they know people have thought of, okay, what's the downside? What's the upside? And don't just have this one number that exactly ties to whatever the number is, 5 times return or something, right? Because we know it's just in a formula and they're plugging certain numbers in to get to it.
Yeah, I think it's important to add on to what Jim said. It's important, I think, for sellers to very much coach up their internal champions. Like, earlier Tim had said, like, one of his things is like he always looks for the R and ROI. He doesn't ask for that like every other time. He doesn't ask for that. He asks for that every single time. Like, as a cohort of people, we CFOs, we're pretty consistent in our triggers, in like stuff that makes us nuts and stuff that we really like. And but like, for example, one of my current triggers is like anything like real estate related. If your internal champion is just unaware in general, or like is not kind of tuned in to what it is your particular CFO kind of likes and dislikes, like that can make for a long process. So as a seller, it's not necessarily your job, but if you want to help get the deal done, is to help kind of like ensure like your champion, like, do you really know how this gal's head or how this guy's head kind of operates, and stuff that's going to really set him off versus stuff that's that's going to resonate with him, and kind of the more you're clear with that, then I think the more helpful it's the more.
The other thing I would say is like, look, our job as CFOs is to help educate our workforce too. And right, so when people come in with these things, we're trying to develop them. So, they come in with better ones next time. Right. And so it isn't,
it's a learning moment, right?
Yeah, it's a learning mode, right? And so we're trying to teach people, right? And our job is to teach people. So it is not, oh yeah, you got the wrong answer. It was on, the wrong color ink and stuff like that. But our job is to teach people. And when they come in with a bad paper, we help correct it and then send it back, right? But we're not just trying to be Dr. No. We are trying to teach our people and make our companies and our people better.